It's close to midnight here where I am. My name is Sorik. Welcome to Sorik Cazimi, and welcome to my first ever personal vlog. Yay! Please clap. I don't know if people listen to vlogs anymore. I mean, they do. I listen to vlogs, so I assume there gotta be other people out there who listen to vlogs. I've been struggling lately. I have a lot of things that I want to post, but I've been stuck in this just like absolute cycle of stuckness. I've been stuck in a cycle of stuckness. And like I want to make videos. Oh no, look at my little my cough drop doesn't have a top. Oh well. Okay, so forgive the cough drop. I had a sore throat this weekend. Don't worry, not the Rona. It was just one of my tonsils was irritated. But I'm okay now, but I'm still doing cough drops just so, just in case. I like to have something to do with my teeth. Like, I don't know if any of y'all also have sensory needs where you just kind of like need something to do, something to chew on. I was a pencil chewer as a kid. I also chewed gum a lot, something that I wrote about on my blog. I mean, on my blog, not my vlog. I wrote about it on my blog. Okay, so basically, because I've wanted to make videos about a lot of like astrology topics and tarot topics and numerology topics, but I've been incapable of making myself sit down and do them, I've decided to try this format instead, because I feel like it'll let me just sort of get rid of the talker's block that I've been experiencing. And yeah, hopefully it'll get things flowing. So, the 3 topics that I've picked for myself are all astrology topics this time. I'm going to try and talk about Pluto, I'm going to try and talk about Venus retrograde, and I'm going to try and talk about Yods. And I'm going to give myself, let's say, till this cough drop dissolves to get them all done. So let's get to it. One of the reasons that I'm choosing vlogs also is because, like, I don't know about y'all, but I'm vain. Maybe this is just a me thing, but like, I want to talk about my own chart as like a jumping off point to talk about astrological topics. But like, I feel like there's like a taboo amongst astrology people about like talking about your own chart. There's various valid reasons, but like, I'm gonna try and keep it vague, but I am gonna be referencing my own chart and my own experiences as jumping off points, because thou know thyself best. That's not proper, but I know myself best, and obviously any experience I have of the planets is going to be filtered first and foremost through my own lens of my life that I live. And so, let's see. Pluto and Venus retrograde are sort of like a topic that I've been thinking about together for me, because because they're all forming a Yod for me, which is, I guess, why I've chosen to talk about these 3 topics together. So I have like a natal Yod in my chart. If you don't know, a Yod is when 2 planets are sextile to each other, so they're like 2 signs apart from each other, 60 degrees if you're counting in degrees, and there's a 3rd planet that is quincunx to both of the points in the Yod, so it's forming like an isosceles triangle, like this. And so the planet that's at the point of the Yod is 150 degrees away from each planet that's in the sextile, and it is receiving pressure from that sextile, essentially. And it's a pressure that's hard to figure out or withstand or overcome or even work with. Because the whole point of it is that quincunxes in astrology, they're signs that are 150 degrees apart from each other. So they're like 5 signs away. So that's it's one sign short of an opposition, and it's one sign past a trine. Trines are considered like easy, harmonious, flowing aspects. Oppositions are like polarizing. They give you like perspective, but they can also give you like sort of like feelings of insurmountable differences. You know, being on two opposite sides of an issue is like the nature of an opposition. Whereas a trine is like very like encouraging. It's like an improv when you do the yes anding, you know, like trines are always yes anding each other. The two planets or more planets that are involved in a trine. But with inconjunctions, it's just the two planets involved in an inconjunction or a quincunx. I'm going to call it a quincunx because that's more precise. They are considered in traditional Hellenistic astrology, that is Greco-Roman astrology, to be in aversion, is the word that I think Paulus Alexandrus uses for it. And he's kind of, I think, the first person to write about yods. Not yods, to write about aversion specifically. Maybe that's the oldest historical record we have of someone like addressing it. But basically, the nature of a quincunx is like, it's sort of like an opposition, but more irritating and less easily resolved. Because signs that are opposite to each other, like, you know, say like Taurus and Scorpio are opposite to each other, or Leo and Aquarius are opposite to each other, they at least have something in common. They share something called a modality. So like Leo and Aquarius are both fixed signs, or Gemini and Sagittarius are both mutable signs. So they have a way of operating in the world that is at least something in common. So they have some level of common ground, even though they are on opposite sides of an issue. There can be some sort of like complementariness, which is why many Vedic astrology, I think, sources consider opposite moon signs to actually be like a good thing for marriage. I don't know if I agree with it in practice, but I understand the theory of like, you know, one person can bring to the table what the other person doesn't have, kind of thing, in a partnership or in any sort of relationship, platonic, artistic, romantic, sexual, just, you know, any of the above. Yeah, so that's the opposition. But the quincunx, they're 5 signs apart, so they don't share, they're not in the same modality, so they won't both be, they'll be one of either fixed, cardinal, or mutable, but they'll be different ones. They'll be different elements, and they will be of opposite polarities. So they'll be like, one will be an extroverted sign, and one will be a more introverted sign. Extroverted signs are fire and air, introverted signs are water and earth. So they'll be different on that account. And yeah, they just don't have anything in common whatsoever when it's a quincunx. So when you have the Yod, and you've got 2 planets that are sextile here, sextiles are like, they're more like signs that are listening to each other. They're of like a more complementary element nature, so they'll both either be extroverted or they'll both be introverted, but they'll be like different ones. So it'll either be a water planet and an earth planet, or a fire planet and an air planet in a sextile. And that's at like the top of the Yod. And then like at the point of the Yod, there will be a planet that's like of the opposite elemental quality, extroverted or introverted. And the problem with this is that you have these two planets that are in conversation with each other at the top. So they're talking, they're negotiating, they're discussing, they're kind of like trying to come to an understanding with each other. They're trying to collaborate on something, maybe. And it's like a friendly collaboration. It's not like a group project where you are doing all this. Also, if all of this talk sounds kind of similar, I was inspired to talk about this by Christopher Renstrom's, I think that's how you say his name, Christopher Renstrom's recent video he did on the Astrology Hub, what do you call it, YouTube channel. He did a video on yods recently, which inspired me to talk about this. So I'm using a lot of the metaphors that he uses in that. Yeah. He described yods as being like... No, sorry, he describes squares as being like when people are working on a group project or something, and you have to like sort of like discuss with each other. But sextiles he described as being kind of like when you and your friend are like trying to, you know, like maybe you're hanging out and you're trying to decide what to watch on, you know, what to watch, and you're both sort of like, oh, I want to watch something like this, and the other person's like, no, I don't really feel like watching that right now. And so you kind of have to go back and forth and find something that you can both work on. So yeah, so the reason yods are hard is because you've got two planets that are in conversation or negotiation with each other. They're like, we're gonna talk and try and come to like something that satisfies both of our needs, even though we are different. But planets that are in quincunx to each other have a really hard time coming to common ground. And the way this applies to my personal experience is that I have a yod in my natal chart. Arguably I have more than one yod, but there's one very prominent yod, and it takes place in the signs of... the planets involved are in Capricorn, Pisces, and Leo. And so the Capricorn and Pisces planets are in the sextile, and then the planets in Leo are at the point of the yod. So they're receiving that pressure from the Capricorn and Pisces sextile. Now, this is my natal yod, and coincidentally, right now in the sky, we also have a yod where all three of those particular points are being very closely activated, very close to the degrees that I have them at. Isn't it lovely? Yeah. So, right now we've got Pluto retrograde in Capricorn at 29 degrees. It's doing its very last run in Capricorn, and then it's going to be done for the next, like, 200 and something years. Because Pluto has an orbital period of about 248 years, I think. And so it stays, like, 20 years in a sign on average, 20 to 30, I think. And, something like that. Anyway, it's not going to be in Capricorn again for a while. So, right now, this year is the last run it's doing in Capricorn for the next 200 plus years. And then it's going to move into Aquarius. We've already gotten a little peek, a little preview of what Pluto in Aquarius is going to be like for us, all of us collectively. Because from like late March until June 11th, Pluto was in Aquarius. It made its first little dip in there. So whatever you experienced in late March till about June 11th, that is some of the experiences that you had there, you don't know it yet, but they are seeding something for the future. They're going to build and form and blossom into something in whatever house or houses Aquarius falls in for you in your birth chart. So for me, Aquarius is in my 11th house if I use whole signs, and a little bit also in my 12th house if I use Placidus or some other house system. So yeah, Pluto's at 29 Aquarius over there, or I'm sorry, 29 Capricorn over there, and then Neptune is over at 27 Pisces. So they're forming that sextile right now. Pluto in Capricorn and Neptune in Pisces. And then we have Mars and Leo over at the point of the Yod, which is, it's going to be exact, I think, very soon as of me. Or no, it's already like, as I'm filming this, I think Mars is already at 27. Yeah, it's starting to apply to an exact quincunx with Neptune. And so this Yod is going exact. And here I am talking about it as it activates my natal Yod. Beautiful, isn't it? This is not my first attempt at talking about Yods, by the way. You know, the best example I can think of for the nature of how a Yod plays out is that I have been trying literally since 2019. So for the past 4 years now, I have made numerous attempts to talk about Yods. I have filmed no less than 6 attempts at making a video about Yods, and every single time, I don't finish. Something happens, something comes up, technology issue, personal issue, brain absolutely blanking out and going big baby babbling goo goo gaga mode. Like, I have not been able to finish a video about Yods, which is why this time I'm not doing just a video about Yods. I'm also talking about Pluto and Venus in hopes that it circumvents this issue. Let's see. But yeah, so the nature of Yods, from what I've read and what I've experienced, is that the planet at the point, at the bottom of the Yod, at the apex is the word they call it, the apex of the Yod, it's the subject of conversation of these two planets in the sextile. These two planets in the sextile are like collaborating together, right? They're trying to get this Yod planet to cooperate with them, but because neither of them is speaking the same language, so to speak, like, they're not on the same page, these two planets and this one. And so they have a really hard time. They can negotiate amongst each other. They might have like an agenda that they want, but something about their agenda, it's really hard to convince this apex planet or planets to go through with it. And that's because like the apex planet is not buying in to the plan that the sextile planets are making. You know, like say like 2 of your friends want to, I don't know, start a podcast. Let's say like these 2 sextile planets. There's 2 of your friends who want to start a podcast or something, right? And they want to do like maybe a traditional like podcast format where like people are just sitting around and talking about like let's say what is a Capricorn and a Pisces subject? Engineering disasters. I don't know. I've seen at least one podcast about engineering disasters. I don't know how many exist out there. But let's say 2 of your friends want to start a podcast about engineering disasters, right? and they're trying to convince you, let's say you're the apex person, they're trying to convince you to be on this podcast with them. And you're not buying it because you're at the Leo point of this, right? I'm specifically trying to talk about an example for the Leo, Capricorn, Pisces. So Capricorn, by the way, Capricorn is structures and Pisces is like dissolving structures, especially because like Pluto in Capricorn is breaking down corrupt structures. And then Neptune in Pisces is like, Neptune's a dissolving planet and Pisces is a dissolving sign. So it's just lots of breakdowns and lots of dissolutions of structures, especially power structures, because Pluto's power. So let's say your two Capricorn and Pisces friends are trying to convince you, this Leo Mars, to do something about these like engineering disasters podcast, right? But you're like, I don't know, that seems like too boring of a topic for me, or it seems like too sad of a topic for me. How can we get some Leo flair in there, you know? Leo can be a very like, Mars and Leo especially can be a very like a childlike, straightforward, direct energy. Like, you know, the sort of like way like when a kid is trying to like you know when a kid is trying to do whack-a-mole and they're just like, they don't have any concept of like modulating themselves. They're taking all of that dummy strength and just going for it. They're hammering down on that whack-a-mole machine. They don't have any like need for restraint. Leo Mars is a little bit like that. If they have a desire, if they have an intention, they're gonna pursue it without too much of like plan crafting or like agendaing, you know? So say you're at the apex of this yacht and you want to figure out how to bring some of that straightforwardness, and Leo's also like a theatrical sign. So maybe you want a theatrical energy to this. You want something that's a little bit more like passionate, something that has a little flair, a little drama. So how do you bring flair and drama and theater to a podcast about engineering disasters, right? So that's the sort of like, that's kind of the vibe of the Yod that's going on in the sky right now. And and so you could say that like, you can see how this would be an issue. These are compatible desires up here, but it's a very like difficult to reconcile desire for the apex planet. And so it can lead to something like long negotiations where like the apex planet is throwing out, why don't we do this? Why don't we do that? To the two planets like at the sextile. And the sextile planets are like, yeah, we kind of already came up with a plan ourselves. And like, this sounds like it's not exactly what we wanted to do. And so it can take a lot of time to resolve and it doesn't even ever fully resolve from what I've seen. Like, I don't know, I've seen differing things on Yod stories and Yod like books that I've read. I read Karen, oh gosh, there's a lady who wrote a book on Yods, and I'm gonna put her name here. It's Karen Haymakers on deck, something like that. I can't remember how to pronounce it right now, I'm sorry. But I really like the book. It talks about Yods, and there's a lot of like energy of like Yods take a lot of years to resolve, and the way that they're resolved is never like the way that anyone is expecting them to be resolved. Like in this example about the engineering podcast, like you might like as the Yod person like convince your friends to like, why don't we do like, I don't know, like a segment where we build like a Lego model of this Yod. Like maybe the Mars and Leo person is really into Legos or something. So they're like, why don't we build a Lego model of this like engineering disaster building and then do some sort of diagram for like something that went wrong, you know, or like some sort of demonstration. And so like maybe the two people at the sextile like, huh, okay, I guess we can work that in, you know, to our videos. But then that sets forth a thing where like you can't do just a podcast if you want to do that, right? So maybe you have to like figure out how to do video recordings of your podcast so that you can show these things. And in the process of doing that, maybe it changes so that you're not necessarily doing a podcast exactly, but you guys are just instead making these like, I don't know, like video essays or commentary videos about this thing, which are not quite a podcast. Although I guess the lines between those can be blurry. But anyway, you know, something about the nature of the project fundamentally changes because the two sextile planets are attempting to accommodate this apex planet. So that's how a yod can work. One of the many ways. For me personally, I feel like the Leo, Capricorn, Pisces yod for me manifests a lot as me feeling a struggle between my creative desires, so those Leo planets, like my desire to be like very artistic, very like hot stuff, you know, very full of flair. And then the Capricorn Pisces sextile, it's like, and also like the two Leo planets are personal planets. Personal planets, if you don't know, are Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, and Mars are considered personal planets. I believe Mars is also considered a personal planet. It's a little on the edge, but those planets are considered personal planets because they are closest to the Earth. They're the planets that are closer to the Earth and the planets that move faster, so that you have more of like a differentiation from people who are born in time close to you. So like you can be born in the same year as someone else, but your Venus signs will be like opposite if you're born at opposite times of the year, for example. Whereas that's compared to the outer, so those are the inner planets or personal planets, and then there's the outer planets, or the like more generational planets, we can call them, where they move much slower, and so people born like in the same like span of years like will have those planets in the same sign. So that will be Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. And those planets you will share with people born close to you. Like Jupiter stays in one sign for about a year at a time, Saturn for about 2.5 years at a time, Uranus for like, I don't know, maybe like 8 years at a time, something like that. And then Neptune, I don't remember exactly how much. Perfect for Neptune. And then Pluto for like 20 or 30 years at a time. So I would imagine then that Neptune stays somewhere in between 7 to 8 and 20, so like maybe 15-ish years at a time. I don't really know. I can't remember right now. And so those outer planets, they are much slower moving. And so the two planets that are at the sextile right now, like both in the sky and in my personal chart, are those slow moving generational planets. So whatever is happening both in my chart and in the sky right now, those two outer planets are in conversation. They have some sort of larger overarching social agenda, you know? Because when the generational planets change sign, like Pluto is changing to Aquarius in the process of it right now, they create rippling waves of change, you know? They create long-lasting societal trends of change. And when similar planets come together in their cycles, you will see similar types of events and changes happen. If you want to know more about this, I recommend the video series Changing of the Gods. The first video it's like a series of like 8 or 10 episodes or something, and the first episode is available for free on the Changing of the Gods YouTube channel, or you can pick up the book Cosmos and Psyche by Richard Tarnas. That one is, I think that's what Changing of the Gods is like based on. Richard Tarnas is involved in the creation of that. So those two sources talk about the movements of the outer planets and how when outer planets change, you see wide-reaching effects of like generational change. And one of the ways that you see that is, you know how we have the classifications of generations, like we've got, baby boomers, and then we've got Gen X, and we've got like, the silent generation, we've got the millennial generation, we've got Gen Z. Those are roughly correlated with the different signs that Pluto is in. And if you want to know more about that, Kira Taborn has like some good stuff on their website about that. I will throw links for all of these things down in the description. But if you want to read more about how the different Pluto signs correspond to these generational classifications that we have, I'll leave a link there. And, but yeah, so Pluto in Aquarius is finishing off like a 20-year journey, because from like 2008 until like 2023 was Pluto's run in Capricorn. And Pluto made some changes to the world in the interim years, especially I'm going to talk about the US, the so-called United States, where the creation chart for this particular nation, I'm going to talk about it from this lens because that's where I live and this is where I grew up, right? So this is the lens I'm coming to from the seat of empire. The United States creation chart of July 4th, 1776 has Pluto in Capricorn. So the past, 20-ish years has been very significant in terms of, 2003 to, no, that's not 20 years. That's like 15 years maybe. I may have been exaggerating how long Pluto stays in a sign, but also it stays different lengths of time in different signs, so I might not be completely off. Probably closer to 20 years than 30, but who can say? I'll do another video about that sometime. But yeah, so the United States Pluto chart, the United States Pluto return has been happening. And Pluto returns obviously are something that you can't see on an individual level. They are something you can only see on a collective level. And we've been seeing the underlying corruption of this place, of this government, being unveiled in all sorts of myriad ways, but especially financially. Because I think the US, more than most other nations in the world, is currently the absolute lead in the worship of capitalistic greed. Like, truly, everything is about finance here. Every possible need that human beings who live here could have are subservient to the need for rich white men to make profits. And not only to make profits, but to make ever-increasing and ever-growing profits. No matter how many vulnerable people have to suffer for them to sustain this ever-increasing desire for profit. And Pluto is, like I said, very much about power structures. Pluto is about what is sacred and what is profane. Pluto's about annihilation, complete desecration of what is held holy, but it is also about purification, alchemization, and the resurrection of the sacred, right? Pluto's like a volcano. When it erupts, it lays waste to the landscape around it. Trees are scorched, living creatures die, ashes rain down from the sky, and the landscape around it is not the same for many years afterwards. But it doesn't stay that way forever. The landscape rebuilds. And actually, periodic volcanic eruptions, I think, from what I remember from science class, are good for the landscape in some ways. Because that sort of level of destruction does something that helps, like, cycle out certain parts of nature. Like, I think there are some plants, for example, that only, like, drop their seeds and reproduce after, like, a volcanic eruption or something like that. So there's ecosystem balancing things that happen even in the wake of such devastation. And in that same way, the devastation that Pluto wreaks is something that is necessary. The devastation it's been wreaking in the US is not good. I'm not saying that it's good that the vulnerable and the poor and the marginalized have to suffer. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that the revelation and the making public of these underlying corrupt power structures, becoming visible even to the privileged, even to the middle class, like white, cis, straight, able-bodied American citizens who don't have to think about all of these ways that the state commits violence against marginalized people. Pluto in Capricorn has been bringing it in front of their eyes. And especially with the Saturn-Pluto conjunction of January 2020, which happened right before the big event that has been changing our lives irreversibly for the past 3 years. And so Pluto in Capricorn is finishing up that process right now for the rest of the year before dipping back into Aquarius permanently for the next almost 2 decades-ish. So what's going to come from this, What are we going to see happen with Pluto in Aquarius? Well, like I said earlier, we got a preview of that from late March until June 11th of this year, 2023. The things that happened then are going to echo in the things that will happen from here on out. And I don't have a lot of in-depth stuff to say about Pluto in Aquarius right now, but I'll talk about it at a future point. But all of this explanation just to say that Pluto and Neptune right now, Pluto in Capricorn and Neptune in Pisces, at as I remind you, the sextile of this Yod, are in conversation with each other. Pluto and Neptune are in conversation with each other. And they're cooperating, they're negotiating, to some degree, on this agenda of dissolution. Some final things being dissolved right now. I hope, for example, the recent Supreme Court ruling where Biden's purported plan to forgive student loan debt was recently struck down by the Supreme Court. I hope that it's truly opening the eyes of people who still cling to faith in the system to do any justice by them. I hope that it's kind of like a final reminder that, like, this corrupt, imperialist, colonizing, greed-driven, profit-driven government is never going to do justice by people, because that's just not what it's set up to do. This country was formed by cultists who were escaping persecution for their culty behavior in England. This nation is a haven for cults, for religious cults. Evangelicism. People don't like to call it a cult, but that's what it is. It's a cult. They use cult tactics. They use cult indoctrination. And much like cults, they will exile community members who no longer believe in what they believe. And much like a cult, they are committed to proselytizing to people, to convincing people to join their cult, and they want to control everyone around them according to the beliefs of their cult. People just don't like to think about that because evangelicism, evangelical Christianity, has been so successful in its cult-like ability that they've gained so much political power here because this country was made for people like them. Yeah, I don't have more to say about that right now. I'm going into morbid spins of thought. I might talk more about that another time. But let's switch gears and talk about Venus. So Venus is also approaching the sextile of this Yod. Venus is going to be at the apex of this Yod after Mars leaves, because Venus is going to take another 2 weeks-ish, because she's slowing down in preparation of retrograde right now. And so Venus is going to slowly, she's at 23 right now, she's going to slowly trickle over to 27, 28 degrees of Leo, and then she's going to start going backwards. So Venus is actually not going to complete the same Yod apex that Mars is going to be doing right now, right? Mars over the next few days is going to zoom out past this Yod apex and move into Virgo. Mars is going to clear this and move forth, taking action into whatever these two sextiles are talking about. Mars is going to, right now the feeling of stuckness that Mars is having right now is going to shift forth into action, because then Mars is going to be in Virgo. It's going to be trine Pluto by sign, and they're both going to be in Earth signs. They're going to be, you remember I said earlier how trines are yes-anding each other? So Mars is going to be able to yes-and Pluto and start to help take action to bring the agenda of this sextile into fruition. But Venus over here, she's going to approach the Yod apex. She's going to make an exact sextile with Neptune in Pisces at 27 degrees. But before she can make an exact she's going to form, not a sextile, she's going to form a quincunx with Neptune at 27 degrees of Pisces. But before she can quincunx exactly Pluto in Capricorn at 29 degrees, she's not going to get there, because at 28 degrees and some change, she's going to station retrograde, and she's going to go backward through Leo through the rest of the summer. She's going to go backward all the way to like early Leo, like to, I don't know, like 6 degrees or something. And so this Yod energy pressure that's happening right now, this sort of like painful like adjustment, this itchiness, this crawling out of your skin trying to make something happen, it's not going to fully take form yet. Mars is going to start taking action on it, but there's going to be some sort of aesthetic or artistic or romantic dissatisfaction with what you're doing right now. You know, it's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be in its final form. You're going to be getting started on it because Mars is going to be just whipping past. But Venus is going to be doing that retrograde. And so while you might be taking action on whatever agenda Pluto and Neptune are casting in your chart, whatever their little spells they're casting in your chart, Mars will be taking action on it, but Venus is going to be like, how can we make this more Leo? You know? Like, what can I do to make this more me? What can I do to make this have the appropriate flair that I desire? What can I do to give this the energy that I want to convey? What can I do to make this more artistic? What can I do to make this more beautiful? You know? That's what Venus is going to be thinking about at the apex of this Yod, and then as she retrogrades and goes back through Leo. So Venus is going to come back to the point of this Yod, because Pluto and Neptune are very slow moving. They're going to be in this sextile for a hot minute, to say the least. So by the time Venus comes back later in like September, probably, she's gonna be doing this again later in September. Whatever she's doing right now over the next 2 weeks, you know? So whatever you are doing right now over the next 2 weeks, whatever you're doing right now in mid-July, you are going to be reconsidering these actions, and you're going to be like coming back and revisiting them later in September. So check the house where Leo is in your birth chart, the house or houses where Leo falls in your birth chart, and you are going to like be dealing with matters of this house over the summer, and it's going to be something where you're like reviewing things, you're revising things, you're reconsidering things. You might be, making adjustments to something you've already started. And all of this is going to finally, like, your actions that you're taking now are going to be aligned with your sense of aesthetics and harmony by October, because October is when Venus will finally leave Leo and move into Virgo. So Venus will start then moving through wherever Mars is moving through right now. So you're going to be doing some sort of repeat of your actions of right now later in October. Okay. I don't know how coherent all of that was, but I feel like I've done kind of like a decent capture of the interplay between Yods, between Pluto and Venus right now. And yeah, I think I'll wrap this vlog up there. If you listened to all of that, thank you so much. If you have any questions about anything I've talked about, please drop your questions in the comments below, and I will do my best to either answer them or to direct you to better sources that can explain them properly. If you liked this video and you found it cool or helpful or something, share it with someone you know who is also into astrology or curious about astrology. And, let them know. Maybe they'll like it. Maybe they'll hear something that they need to hear right now. That's what I'm hoping to do with these. Like, I'm thinking about lots of things that are related to the planets all the time, and so, like, hopefully some of the thoughts that I'm having are things that other people are also having, or that they need to hear. Maybe you'll get some validation that someone else is thinking these things too, or struggling with these things too. And so yeah, that's what I'm hoping to do with these vlogs. I'm not sure when I'll do another one. Probably basically as soon as I have another topic. Because I'm honestly, I kind of like this format. It's really easy for me to pick multiple topics and just sort of blabber on about them. something that I've never tried before, because I'm like, oh, I have to be all polished and refined and pick one video and make like a really neat like 15-minute edited video about it, you know? And it's like, that's just not working for me. That's why all of my previous Yod videos failed, because I was trying really hard to be like really precise and scripted and stuff. And apparently that's not what I want. Apparently I want to go improv mode, which is like, okay, that's what we're doing now. We're gonna try that. I saw another commentary channel that said something like that about how he prefers to like just sort of sit in front of the camera with his loose topics and talk. So I'm like, why don't I try that? That's so smart. Why don't I do that? I'm decent at going on and on about a topic. As any of my friends will know, if they ask me any astrology questions, I will take them on a journey of explaining different things. Anyway, wrapping up before I get into another tangent. If you have any questions, drop them below. If you have any topic suggestions, drop them below. I would love to know what other people want to hear about, want to learn about. For me personally, I'm going to try and get some videos out where I talk about like basics of astrology, so like the planets and then the signs and then the houses. I'm going to do a basic video on numerology at some point soon, where I talk about what the numbers 0 through 9 mean. And then I've been thinking about also, I got some suggestions from my friends to do videos about tarot more, like maybe like what does each tarot card mean kind of thing. And all of those will tie into my astrology and numerology videos anyway. So anyway, that's what I'm thinking of making. I will be getting those out during the next few weeks as Venus is slowing down to station retrograde. So I'm gonna do my Mars stuff. I'm gonna try these out, and then I'm gonna probably spend the next month and a half, rest of the summer, nitpicking and reviewing and trying to make this more the way I wish it was. Anyway, thank you so much for listening. Have a lovely time. If you enjoyed this video and you want to see more stuff, let me know by liking. If you want to be notified when more videos are posted, subscribe if you want to. Anyway, wherever you are, take care, have a good time, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.